All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Brian, and this is Amy News and Conversation. I'm here today with another one of our award winners for 2025, Jeff Tully, MD, and Associate Clinical Professor of Anesthesiology. And we're going to dive into a bit more about who Jeff is. But Jeff, out of the gate, I wanted to really highlight here, you're the recipient of our MedCrypt Cybersecurity Visionary Award, the AAMI and MedCrypt Cybersecurity Visionary Award. And when I just say that to somebody who doesn't really know too much about the award and say, oh, yeah, our recipient was a medical doctor, they're going to be confused, right? They're going to expect it to be a health IT professional or an engineer or something along those lines. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in cybersecurity?
Thanks, Brian. And first of all, thank you so much to Amy and MedCrypt and all the folks who were involved in the awarding process. It's a huge honor. The Cybersecurity Visionary is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. I'm just very thankful to be a small part of this awesome community. Previous colleagues of mine have won this award, like Dr. Christian Demev and Dr. Kevin Fu. So it's a real awesome cohort to be a part of. So yes. In my day job, I am an anesthesiologist taking care of patients here at UC San Diego, but I'm also the co-director of the Center for Healthcare Cybersecurity. And this kind of dual hats, so to speak, arose in medical school when I first met my partner, Dr. Christian Demeff, who introduced me really into the sort of hacking community, which later on turned into the sort of more formal cybersecurity space. But in medical school, we very quickly realized that a lot of the concepts and vulnerabilities that we were thinking about in other types of computer systems very much applied to the technology platforms that we were using to take care of patients. And so that kind of kicked off a now 15-year research exploration into how we can make both medical devices, but larger healthcare infrastructure more safe and secure.
All right. So a lot of our viewers will probably be familiar with some of those threats, but for those who aren't, can you give me a quick elevator pitch of some general threats that you tend to look at?
Yeah, so from the medical device standpoint specifically, that was one of the first ways in which we started to think about cybersecurity in the context of healthcare, and that was really driven by the work of folks like Kevin Fu, previous award winner back in 2010, 2012 time, where they were doing some uh, study on devices like pacemakers and showed that exploiting certain design or software vulnerabilities could lead to adverse function of those devices in the context of patient care. Things like draining the battery of a pacemaker, using a pacemaker inappropriately to deliver shocks. Later work by security researchers led to things like insulin pumps and infusion pumps being looked at and ways in which those could be exploited from a cybersecurity vulnerability standpoint. And so that's a big part of the work that we do, both as doctors and as researchers here at the Center for Healthcare Cybersecurity, is to understand how medical devices can be more safe and secure. But we also look at larger healthcare infrastructure, things like hospitals, technology platforms used to take care of patients that are disrupted during things like ransomware attacks, which most people are probably
Right.
familiar with.
Yeah, and granted, ransomware attacks are going to be the one thing that I think most healthcare professionals are also not just familiar with, but maybe have experienced themselves or the most concerned about.
Mm,
You know, when you tell me, oh, bad actors might attack people's pacemakers,
yeah,
the part of me that wants to believe in humanity will be like, no, no, they wouldn't do
yeah.
that. But at the same time, I also don't want a medical device manufacturer to disregard that possibility. Is that basically the direction of your work? Worst case scenario prevention?
Absolutely. And we certainly don't seek to encourage any fear, uncertainty, or doubt, or to make a claim about threat models and how likely it may be for somebody to go after, somebody's insulin pump. I will say historically, there are a couple of different examples in a high profile sense. I think it's fairly well known on the public record that Dick Cheney's cardiologists were a little bit concerned about the cybersecurity aspects of
Mm.
his pacemaker and took some modifications to address that. But no, we certainly want to contextualize the risks and vulnerabilities in medical devices and other medical technologies used to take care of patients in a way that is appropriate and justified. I will say we also need to do work on kind of surveillance and study, uh, ways in which we can interpret things like digital forensics to get a sense of are these types of things being exploited out in the fields. It's a little hard to say that they're not because we're simply not equipped with the mechanisms or tools to kind of go out and look for that. So this is still a very, very new field. We need to collect a lot of data to understand the landscape, be able to contextualize some of the threats. But I think most people would probably agree that we want our medical devices to be free from major cybersecurity vulnerabilities in general.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good reflection of, I would say, what this award is about. Because granted, you guys are the visionaries, so you're going to be looking forward. So I am curious along those lines, right? Are there any specific challenges in the future that might be affected by, say, AI or changes in the
Yeah.
cyberspace? Because there's been conversation about cyber for as long as I've been looking at
Yeah.
news about medical devices.
Let me hit on a challenge really quickly, but then let me
Hmm.
also follow up with ways in which I think we've moved the needle, and many of Amy's members may have been a part of that effort, right? So, from the standpoint of the sort of challenges of the future, I think we are seeing a lot of expansion into the home setting, right? For many different types of medical devices and platforms, hospitals at home, remote patient monitoring. We are incorporating digital devices into our lives and by extension our healthcare at a scale that I really think we haven't fully appreciated before. So if the digital boundaries of a hospital are starting to bleed into people's homes, I think there's a lot that we need to look at with respect to how to protect any type of infrastructure that we may be bolting on to our healthcare system, right? So AI can get into that and we can have some more discussions about that. But I will say that we've seen a lot of progress over the last decade, right? And I think a lot of that progress has stemmed with this really interesting synergistic relationship between security researchers who are doing the work to kind of uncover some of these vulnerabilities and medical device manufacturers and folks at places like the FDA, all kind of uniting to understand that this really is sort of a shared responsibility, a way in which we can collaborate and start to induce ways to, you know, secure software by design, other foundational practices to where we can really be thinking about cybersecurity from the get-go as opposed to kind of an after the fact consideration. So I think you would definitely be remiss if you didn't acknowledge the progress that we've made on this issue over the past 10 years.
Oh, that's fantastic, and I'm glad you highlighted it. And granted, a lot of the work that you're talking about has really almost, I would say, almost a hub is coming out of your Center for Healthcare Cybersecurity. A lot of great names, like you mentioned, Kevin Fu, really big visionary there.
Yep.
But that said, I am curious about next steps on your side in particular. Are there any specific research projects that you're working on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so at our center, we have a number of other faculty. It's not just Christian and myself, so we're able to leverage
Mhm.
a really great bench of computer scientists and security researchers here at UC San Diego. One of those that I'd like to highlight, his name is Dr. Pat Panuto, and he's actually one of the sort of foremost drivers in embedded operating system called TalkOS, which I think has a lot of attractive features that could make it well positioned to kind of be a platform for next generation medical device design. So we're interested in understanding how do we analyze and protect the technology that we deploy right now in our hospitals, but also what is the secure medical design, what the secure medical device rather of the future look like? And we have
Yeah.
people that are working on that problem here at UCSD too.
Now, something that always comes to mind when I think about discovery-based science or discovery-based engineering is, well, what about adoption? It sometimes
Yeah,
takes a long time for this information to reach the rest of the community that really needs to know about it. So,
sure.
how are you approaching that?
We're approaching that in part, I think, by really leaning into the types of industry collaborations that we've started to spin up. So we do have industry members who are part of the center. And, that's not something where we look to sort of put our stamp of approval or endorse any one vendor, but where we partner on sort of shared challenges for the larger ecosystem where we can push the needle forward through research projects that would apply not just to their product line, but to larger medical device cybersecurity issues in general. And so that's a kind of way where we can work in a very close-knit fashion with folks that may adopt some of these technologies like TalkOS as part of their efforts going on forward in the future because they've been involved from the very beginning about scoping that problem and seeing how it would apply to what they do.
That's very cool. I'm really, really glad to hear
Yeah.
about that. So, Jeff, I want to wrap this up, but we've been hearing some cool stuff, but I want to get to know a little bit more about Jeff himself, right? So, why don't you tell me? I mean, you started as an anesthesiologist, but now you have this background in clinical informatics and things like that. So, how has that journey been for you? Are you now more focused on the cybersecurity world?
So believe it or not, I actually started in pediatrics. and then went over to anesthesia, and then started to develop that clinical informatics and cybersecurity background. So, I have to say, from a sort of personal career satisfaction standpoint, I have this incredible capability to go and take care of a patient in the operating room, use a lot of really cool technology to do so, and then turn around and work with awesome folks at UC San Diego to figure out how to secure those types of technologies so that they can continue to do incredible things for patients in the future. And I want to maybe just end on that note. We are not digital Luddites. These technologies are incredible and enable amazing patient outcomes, and we just want to
Mhm.
make sure that they are as safe and secure as possible.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Jeff Tully, the recipient of our AAMI and MedCrypt Cybersecurity Visionary Award for 2025. Thank you so much for dropping by, telling us a little bit about the research you're doing, and keep up the good work. I look forward to telling people about it.
Thanks, Brian. Cheers, everyone.